Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.
The Sparkfile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, where we believe that everyone is creative, but smart creative people don't go it alone.
I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell. If you're an OG listener, welcome back, little sparkler. If you're joining us for the first time, we hope you know that all are welcome here.
Whether you have put your creativity on pause during this time or you've clung to it like a lifeline, either way, welcome.
But you may be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File? Where do I get one? What do I file in it? These are such good questions, and we actually do have answers.
A Spark File is a place where you consistently collect all your inspirations and fascinations.
And here's the deal. We are makers who make all kinds of things.
If you're like us and you're making stuff all the time or want to be making stuff all the time, you know the wellspring of inspiration can run a little dry, especially now.
But don't despair, because we're here for you. And we are on the lookout for fresh ideas, images, and inspiration that spark our creativity and pique our curiosity, things that inspire us to get up off of our asses and make things like this very podcast.
Or a newfound self-awareness and appreciation for our sensitivities. Interesting. Made you think, didn't it?
I love it. Or a creative approach to gatherings that elevates them to an art form.
Ooh, I like it. Every episode we're going to reach into the Spark File and exchange some sparks. And from time to time, we're going to talk to some folks who spark us too.
And if you're not careful, you might just party the hardiest. So without further ado, let's open up the Spark
File.
Laura.
How many?
Laura.
Yeah.
Laura.
Susan. Yeah.
Laura.
Sus.
This is the time on the Spark File. This is the time on Sprockets when we dance. This is the time on the Spark File when we share updates. And I realize I do have an update. And that is, for my birthday back in March, Hunter Bell, the beloved
Hunter Bell,
friend of ours, got me a hummingbird feeder. And I have it right outside of my office window.
Yes.
And I will tell you, I feel sort of like a dick, because you and I will be in meetings with each other. We'll be in deep conversations. We will be talking with clients over Zoom.
Thoughtful, vulnerable moments. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, my head will take a sharp turn to the right, zing, because there's a little hummingbird friend out there. And I have to tell you, it's like tiny little miracles flying by my window.
Oh, yes. I'm all for it. All for it. You know, this magic. Time. Yeah. Just watching like birds are amazing.
It's great. It's like Tinkerbell's flying by my window. I love it so much.
Oh, you know what? Who was it? Our friend Julianne.
Yeah.
Julie Ann Godfrey said hummingbirds were a symbol of what, Susan?
Well, she used
Freedom?
hummingbirds as an allegory for her ADHD. She was talking about like the hummingbird mind, and I just loved that. I loved it so much because
Beautiful.
it's a thing of beauty, and
It is.
I just loved it. Anyway, that's my update. Hummingbirds.
Oh, wow! I love your update. My update is the next season of Alone has started. Susan, it has started. Self-Reliance and grizzly bears.
Where did they drop them? In grizzly bear country?
Yeah, it's in North America. It's in Canada, grizzly bear country. I don't know exactly.
Here's the critical question. What time of year do they drop them?
They always drop. It must be like end of summer or end of fall because
summer.
We watch the winter transition. So it's always about, you always see this pattern of like, right now, food is plentiful. They just have
right.
it's like they have time to figure out how to catch the fish and how, where the like animal trails are and how to catch the small animals. And then those things go away and it gets tougher because the weather turns.
But if they make it all the way to spring, does anyone ever make it all the way to spring? They usually tap out in winter, right?
Well, they tap out, but only like they get told that they've won. So how long they don't just endlessly stay. Once they've won, someone comes to tell them.
But have we ever seen anybody have to make it all the way to spring?
No, it doesn't last that long.
Yeah, it doesn't last that long because that's when the bears will come out and eat you.
The bears will come out and eat you. That's not a good time to be in grizzly bear territory.
It is not. I saw a grizzly man. I know what's what.
Not advisable, friends. If you're listening, don't go. Yeah.
During the pandemic, we had just many nights of binging of Alone.
I love that show.
It's good pandemic viewing. And then there was a tipping point where I was sort of like, it feels lonely and isolated on top of
lonely and isolation. Yeah. I don't know if I could have watched all of them during the pandemic. Although I did read a couple of books about pandemics, there was like one of my phases of the pandemic was to double up on it and go all the way.
Well, look to the past.
Yes.
What's the learning?
That is correct.
Those are good updates. You got a spark for me?
I do. Suze, I'm going to start with something that you know about me. So this will not be surprising. I think you're well aware that I spent my childhood being told that I was what? Too sensitive.
Sensitive.
What's that?
As the French would say, sensitive.
Yeah, sensitive. Yes. And I, as a young kid, I didn't entirely know what they meant, but I could infer it was not meant as a positive. It was definitely a pejorative. It meant, you're reading into things that aren't there. You're imagining things. You're crazy. Because I would be the one to name the thing. If I would feel things and I would sense things and I would say, no, I know, walk into a room and be like, are you guys fighting?
Yeah. You've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Yeah. From a really young age.
From a really young age, which, I understand my family probably thought was freaking annoying because, when you don't want to face things.
Because they were busted. Yeah.
They were busted. And sometimes you don't want to be called out on it. But instead, I was told I was just too sensitive. So it wasn't until I got into theater and acting in particular that my sensitivity was praised and I got called out for it in a good way. And I think that's why I felt like this is my home and these are my people, to be among others, in a place where being able to pick up on the slightest change in a facial expression, a vocal change, a shift in body language. These are all good things when you're in a scene with somebody, not necessarily a gift in real life.
Yeah.
Right. But later in life, I learned that there was a name or names for the things that I experienced and these superpowers that I had. I mean, now I think of them as superpowers, but if you had asked me when I was younger, I thought it was like an affliction. I definitely tried to change myself, to try to be different than I was, but to no avail.
How did can I just ask you, sorry to interrupt you, but how did you try to change your sensitivity? How would you do that?
Literally, like, try not to notice. So that could show up more like, okay, I'm not going to notice that, obviously there's something going on in this room. So, tap dance and smile and, hey, we're all fine. You're acting like, if you're going to act like we're fine, I'll act like we're fine. But nothing is fine.
Yeah.
Nothing in the house is fine.
Yeah.
So try to go along with it. Try to, if I did notice it, try not to say anything. But you know me, Suze. I don't have a poker face.
You have no poker face.
See something, I say something.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have been the poster child for that. See something, say something, because it's a compulsion of like, wait a minute, what was that? I saw a shadow cross your face.
Yeah.
What, tell me about what just happened. And yeah. No.
Nathan has the same thing. Both of you have this. And I will just think a thought. And we know this from our on-camera acting, you think a thought and it's like a little fishy just swims across, your face. And which is great. Like you said, it's great, especially for on-camera work. But you and Nathan, I sometimes surprise me when you say, what just happened? What did you just think? Happened? And sometimes it's so unrelated and so inconsequential that it could be interpreted as something like there's tension, but actually it's not. I'm thinking about that I have to go to the bathroom, something like that. But you both also are so perceptive, sensitive, if you will, that
so sensitive.
Sometimes you help me to identify when you'll catch me before the little thought fishy can swim away. Mm-hmm. You'll catch me and I'll go, oh, you know what it was? I think it's the source of my anxiety today. And that is that I feel blah. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's, sometimes it's inconsequential and sometimes it's consequential.
And what is really a gift, as a sensitive person, is to have relationships now where I can just ask that question. Hey, what was that? Because I know I'm not imagining, something just happened, but I'm also open to the possibility of like, oh, I just remembered I had to take the trash out and I don't think I did it this morning.
And you're like, oh, okay, shoes great. On and so do it. Yeah.
It didn't have anything to do, you know, like it doesn't mean like jumping to a conclusion that it has something to like some sort of negative connotation, but just that something took place.
Yes.
It's so interesting to me that Nathan has that too. So
he sure does
that all day long.
All around me. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does. It happens, on occasion with both of you. And even over Zoom, it totally happens. You and I see stuff over Zoom.
Yeah, for sure.
I can tell when you come on to a Zoom call, I can tell like what kind of day you're having because you don't have a poker face. But it's good.
I can't do it. I had one for a long time. I gave it up and now it's
exhausting. It's exhausting.
It's too tiring. So, Suze, a few weeks ago, no fewer than 3 people in my life forwarded me an article that they said, you have to read this.
Holy shit.
I know. You know, when you get something, you're like, oh, I'm so grateful.
Oh, my God.
I'm so grateful. So the article written by Linda Moon was in Wellbeing magazine, and it was called The Secret Superpowers of Highly Sensitive People.
Everybody's reading Wellbeing magazine?
Everybody's reading Wellbeing.
Okay.
Sorry, it was, I think, in the Apple news feed.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, The Secret Superpowers of Highly Sensitive People, what scientists have discovered about empathy and emotional energy and how to unlock your quietest strength. Huh. So I think the moment I saw it, like my shoulders just dropped like 6 inches. It was like, it's just that reminder that I need every so often. I started to think about the number of clients that we have who also have felt like there might have been something wrong with them because of how sensitive they are. And I thought, I have to share this information for others who might need it. So we are diving into it today, Suze.
Nice. Let's do it.
Okay, so the article in Wellbeing starts with this. Do you feel deeply affected by the suffering of others or pick up easily on vibes around you? Maybe you avoid negative social media and news because of the way it affects you. What makes one person more sensitive than others? And what problems or potential advantages might we face if we're one of the more sensitive crowd? Dr. Judith Orliff, a US-based psychiatrist and author of the Empath Survival Guide, has spent decades investigating these types of questions. It was a search that grew out of her own experience. As a child, Orloff felt that there was something wrong with her. She says, I was criticized for being overly sensitive and told to get a thicker skin. Crowded places like shopping malls with their noise and overstimulation exhausted her. They also caused anxiety, depression, aches, and pains. Unsurprisingly, Orloff preferred spending time with one best friend rather than groups of people. And a turning point came when the young Orloff met Dr. Thelma Moss while working at an intuition lab at UCLA. Side note, I need to know, what is an intuition lab?
I don't know. I want to build an intuition lab. Amazing.
I don't know. More investigation. I need to look into that. But Moss was the first adult to frame Orloff's sensitivity as a positive ability. She told me I was an intuitive empath. Orloff recalls, it felt liberating to know there wasn't something wrong with me and I had nothing to be ashamed about. A whole new exciting world opens up when empaths discover who and what they are and can begin to embrace themselves. That is really the goal, isn't it? I mean, to come to a deeper understanding about who we are and why we are, so we can learn how to navigate the world and enjoy our time on this earth, right? So something I found interesting is there's apparently a movement afoot, the Empaths and Sensitives movement, as it's being called, according to the author, Linda Moon. And this movement outlines various types of sensitives, HSPs, which are highly sensitive people, energy absorbers, empaths, intuitives, and psychics.
Okay.
Dr. Orloff says highly sensitive people and empaths. Those are the two I'm going to focus on for this spark, by the way. She says highly sensitive people and empaths are not the same thing. They can be related, and people often interchange the terms, but they are different.
Okay.
According to the article, sensitive people have an increased reaction to external stimuli, including emotions, whereas empaths have a greater than usual capacity to share another's feelings, but from their own framework. So, research suggests that most of us, even psychopaths, have the capacity for empathy. Orloff describes it as a spectrum, with each of us sitting at different levels. There's the middle of the spectrum, which is the regular person. Although I actually kind of am well, is there any regular person?
Well,
but
sure.
Okay. So middle of the spectrum, a person who has empathy, where their heart goes out for other people in pain or in joy.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit up the spectrum are the highly sensitive people. And then you have even higher on the spectrum, the empath.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Empath is the kind of the furthest on this particular spectrum.
Okay.
And I suppose the narcissist or psychopath might be on the opposite end of the spectrum, where they have very little capacity for empathy.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So, So
I'm
HSPs,
charting it out. Yes. I'm over here charting it out.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be sure and post Susan's chart when we finish.
It looks like a Post-it with illegible chicken scratches on it. So enjoy that.
That's great. So HSPs are highly sensitive to all the sensory elements of the environment, including light, sound, and other sources of stimulation, Orloff says. She says empaths possess all of that plus a high level of intuition. They tend to be sponges who take the energy of others into their own body. Orloff says it's possible and it's common to be both an empath and an HSP, but not all HSPs are empaths.
Got it. Because the empath has that, they're further along on that dyad and they have that higher level of intuition.
That's right. They have all of this sensitivity
Plus,
and
plus,
then
plus.
some. Plus. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yep. So the article pointed me towards a groundbreaking documentary from 2015 called Sensitive, The Untold Story, which was inspired. Yeah. How did this
know this?
How did this pass us by, right?
Where
were we in 2015? What were we doing? So that documentary was inspired by clinical research psychologist Elaine Aron. Aron has been studying high sensitivity since 1991. She claims about 20% of humans possess a measurable trait related to a higher level of sensitivity and responsiveness to stimuli, both environmental and social. In 1997, Aron developed the Highly Sensitive Person Scale, which is a diagnostic criterion for determining HSPs. Some of the things it measures are the ability to quickly discern differences in smell, sound, texture, color, and other sensations. And I thought this was interesting. It also measures a person's tendency to observe before acting. And I was like, that was fascinating to me because I've always categorized that tendency in myself as like, I learn by observing. Or I learn by watching. That's just how I do. I'll be like, show me one more time. Okay, I've got it. Like I have always just thought I observe a situation and then I step into it. It never occurred to me that trait might be related to my high sensitivity. No idea. So I checked out this documentary called Sensitive, The Untold Story by Will Harper. First of all, I was surprised and kind of intrigued to see that Alanis Morissette was in it. I do love her.
Is she a highly sensitive person?
She is. And she talks about how most of her life, she felt like something was wrong with her. She was misunderstood, misperceived. But this isn't about Alanis. It's about Elaine Aron. So I kept myself focused on that, even though I want to know more about Alanis.
Well, I do want to just note that I think it's interesting. When you talk about a highly sensitive person, the place where my mind goes is emotional sensitivity. But what they're talking about is sensitive, all the senses. They're talking about visual senses, sound, touch. They're talking about all of it in addition
that is correct.
To emotion. Okay.
That is correct.
Got it.
Yep. So Elaine Aron is credited for discovering or naming high sensitivity, which is not a mental disorder, like what do they call that? Like a psychiatric term. It's a trait, and it's found in equal numbers across genders. She really pioneered the clinical world and this clinical studies in terms of high sensitivity. She says she studied Carl Jung and introversion because originally she thought that high sensitivity and introversion might be related. But she found that over 30% of highly sensitive people are extroverts. So she realized, no, that's like too high of a percentage. It can't be the same thing.
Interesting.
Not that they can't be related, but they're not exactly the same thing.
I have to say, I would have made the same assumption.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I think that because of our high sensitivity, we may make certain choices that look like introversion.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Fascinating. Yes.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yowza, Elaine Erin has done like a shit ton of research on this. According to Wellbeing, she and her colleagues in a first of its kind study in 2014 found the brains of people with high HSP scores have increased activation in the regions involved in attention, action planning, awareness, integrating sensory information, and empathy. It confirms what sensitive people have long suspected. They're really not like everyone else. Like their brains are not like everyone else. Wow. She believes the brains of sensitives have a heightened response to how they process sensory information. She and her colleagues propose this enhanced ability to process sensory information evolved to help in the survival of the species. Because interestingly, Suze, a certain percentage of animals, it can be found in animals as well.
I think my dog is highly sensitive.
It's very possible.
I do. I really do. Yeah.
It's very possible. And if you think about it, like what they're saying is like it evolved to help the survival of the species so that, you know, at least some people in the group, a small percentage of people in the group would have an increased ability to sense and respond to potential dangers, threats, and opportunities in the environment, which in turn benefits everyone and makes the whole group safer.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you think about packs of animals, and you know, if you watch them, like one will sense a danger before others, and then everybody's like, what?
Yep.
What'd you hear? What'd you smell? You know? So I thought that was really interesting. Signs that you may be highly sensitive include avoiding violent TV shows, feeling easily overwhelmed, strongly affected by hunger, deeply moved by music or art due to the fact that highly sensitive people notice everything around them. Now, according to Wellbeing, the downside of being highly sensitive includes the fact that increased sensitivity places greater mental and metabolic demands upon such individuals. While generally viewed as an adaptive trait, being overly empathetic or highly sensitive can have a dark side for the host. Many HSPs suffer from empathetic overload related to absorbing excess energy from their environment and other people and carrying it as if it's their own, Dr. Orloff said. Symptoms include exhaustion and sensory overload. Common health issues related to empathetic overload include adrenal fatigue, anxiety, depression, panic disorder, chronic fatigue, weight problems, and insomnia, she said. Again, from the Wellbeing article, research suggests that those who are more sensitive to others' emotions may be more prone to depression. A study by psychologists at Queen's University in Canada found depressed people were significantly better than non-depressed people at correctly judging the emotions of people from pictures, which is really... It just is really interesting. So what is the difference between a highly sensitive person and an empath? And how do you know if you're one or both of them? In an article in Psychology Today, Dr. Orloff explains empaths share the traits of what Dr. Aaron has called highly sensitive people, or HSPs. Those include low threshold for stimulation, the need for alone time, sensitivity to light, sound, and smell, and an aversion to large groups. It also takes highly sensitive people longer to wind down after a busy day, since their ability to transition from high stimulation to being quiet is slower. Highly sensitive people are typically introverts, while empaths can be introverts or extroverts, although most are introverts, but they can be extroverts. Empaths share a highly sensitive person's love of nature and quiet environments, their desire to help others, and a rich inner life. However, Dr. Orloff goes on to say empaths take the experience of the highly sensitive person much farther. Empaths can sense subtle energy called Shakti or prana in Eastern traditions and actually absorb it from other people and different environments into their own bodies. Highly sensitive people don't typically do that. This capacity allows empaths to experience the energy around them, including emotions and physical sensations, in extremely deep ways. And so we energetically internalize the feelings and pain of others and often have trouble distinguishing someone else's discomfort from our own. Sus, this totally got me.
Can I ask you, and I don't want to jump your spark.
No, yeah.
Were you like, I recognize myself in that?
100%. 100%. I have to actively work to not pick up someone's energy, especially if they have a strong energy. If they are angry, and you can feel it, when you can feel like vibrations coming off of someone, it's really hard. I can't, and I always thought that had to do with my family, like growing up. But that's how it felt in my house of like, if someone was distraught, angry, upset, crying, I couldn't, I almost couldn't, I don't have the words. It's like I couldn't handle it. I don't know what to do with myself because I can't fix it. I know consciously it's not mine, but I feel it in my body. And I'm like, I have to resolve something.
But like you were saying, you feel it in your body. If you're empathic and therefore kind of porous in a way, and that Shakti is making its way into you, what do you do with that? Especially, I'm sure there are ways of dealing with that. And I have some thoughts about this as an adult, but when you're a little kid, it's just so confusing.
So confusing. And learning to extricate someone else's energy from my own energy and figure out what is mine and what is theirs.
Yeah. How do I feel about?
Yeah. We're going to get into that a little bit more. But yeah, all of that really got me because I am an energy sponge, I think.
Yeah.
I'm highly attuned to the energy that people bring into a space. And I think I'm getting to where I have the power to override it typically, but I cannot avoid seeing it and feeling it. I have a keen awareness of it. And if someone I love is in pain, forget about it. I can't. I almost can't handle it. It's as if I'm feeling the pain myself, physical or emotional, and I don't know what to do with myself.
Wow.
Now, it's like, again, greater separation. If I'm in a room and I see that someone is upset, but it isn't someone I know, and it isn't, I used to have this such intense, like if I was at a party or a gathering of any kind, if someone's upset, someone's not having a good time, like I would feel that, and I would feel like I have to do something about it. Like I've got to correct this or fix this.
Laura, did you happen to listen to Celia Cannon-Bolger has a podcast called Sunday Pancakes, which we both love.
Yes, she does. Hi, Celia.
And she recently interviewed Laura Benanti, and Laura Benanti described this exact thing. How at any party, social gathering, she historically would be like, boop, 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 boop. That is the saddest person in the room. And then feel like she had to take care of it.
Yes.
Yeah. She described textbook description exactly what you just said to me.
That is crazy. That's crazy.
We need to send her this article. That's crazy.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to train myself that it's not always my responsibility to, even if I sense it and feel it, it doesn't mean I have to act on it or do something. It may not be my job. And it may not even be possible for me to fix.
Yeah.
But I used to just be like, oh my God, now this is all coming back to me. My family would make fun of me because they thought it was all motivated by my need to have everyone love me. But I would let's say we're walking the halls. I don't know about your middle school and high school, but in ours, we would, before classes start, there was like a rotation. You just walk the halls and see people and say hi to people, but sort of like walk in movement, in motion.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why. That's what we did. But I could see someone who was not happy for some reason. Now, that could get me spiraling into like, are they not happy because of me? And that I think is something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would spin on it all day long. And it wouldn't have to be a close friend. It wouldn't have to be like Susan Blackwell. I saw Susan and she didn't look happy this morning. It could be someone like that I know only peripherally. And I'm like, that guy, Brian, he was in my science class last year. He really, he's not doing great. And I would think about it all day and then like make a point to like see him. And like the next time I see him, is he smiling? Honestly, these are the things that made me think I was nuts, a little crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. But now it all makes sense. It all makes sense. So I think now, as artists, I think being a highly sensitive person is such a gift. I mean, I think it's important to acknowledge that, like, in the real world, it doesn't always feel that way. It can be exhausting and painful, and you can get criticism and eye rolls. But I think it is an extraordinary gift. I wouldn't give it up now, but it definitely helps to like understand it. Another big thing for me is I can only take sound from one source at a time. I will almost lose my mind if the TV is on and then Wes plays a video on his phone. Both have sound. And I'll be like, babe. And he's like, got it. We have to turn one off. Huh. Yeah, I thought you said Sweet Baby Nathan had something like that too about sound.
Well, he's very sound sensitive. Like very, very sound sensitive. And he has all sorts of rules around sound that he can't, like, if it would ruin his fill in the blank, dinner, sleep, drive. If we're in the car, for instance, and say there's something in the back, we've just gotten groceries and there's something in the back and there's two things that are just gently, like maybe two bottles that are just really gently like tinking against each other. And he will pull the car over, identify what the thing is and change it because he's like, I can't drive all the way home with that sound.
I just want to hug him. I knew I loved him.
It just makes me want to needle him. And I'm just like, those are being so sensitive.
But see, now you know. Now it's a real
now I know
thing.
Really where his Achilles heel is, and I can really dig in. Just kidding. We don't have that relationship.
So on the other end of the spectrum is Susan Blackwell.
Right?
Over here.
The sociopath. I do think he's incredibly empathic. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if he is just a highly sensitive person, not just, but I don't know if he would be categorized as a highly sensitive person and an empath or simply a highly sensitive person.
Guess what?
What?
We're going to find out, at least for you, and then you can forward this on to him.
Okay, great.
How do we know if we're a highly sensitive person or an empath or both? If this conversation resonated with you at all, you might already know the answer, but just to be sure.
I'm also having another real-time realization.
Yeah.
I believe that my father is also, just based on some of the things that you said, at least a highly sensitive person. I'm not sure about the empath piece, but I remember him saying to me one time, and I might have said this on this podcast, he said, you know that movie Beverly Hills Cop? And I said, sure. And he said, do you realize that somebody gets shot in that movie? I can't watch that movie because somebody gets shot. And I was like, I barely remember that. But seeing somebody, even a comedy where somebody, there's physical violence and he can't take it. I have a touch of that as well. But I think he is a highly sensitive person. And isn't it interesting? My father and my husband
and your
you
business partner
and my partner, all the people that are
I
around
suspect you've got a few around you, and you may even be one. I think it's time that we find out.
Let's find out.
Yeah, so we're going to take 2 tests. If you're at home and you want to participate, all you need is a little piece of paper, something to write with, or open the notes section on your phone. Like you can do it as well. We're just going to keep track of little ticks. So we're going to start with Dr. Aaron's test for high sensitivity. I'm going to read a statement, and all you need to do is make a little check mark when the statement is at least somewhat true for you.
Okay.
Okay, it just needs to be somewhat true. And at the end, we're going to tally the number of check marks that you have, okay?
Okay, great.
So do not add a check mark if the statement is not very true or not true at all. Okay, so just somewhat true. Here we go. I am easily overwhelmed by a strong sensory input. I seem to be aware of subtleties in my environment. Other people's moods affect me. I tend to be very sensitive to pain. I find myself needing to withdraw during busy days into bed or into a darkened room or any place where I can have some privacy and relief from stimulation. I am particularly sensitive to the effects of caffeine. I am easily overwhelmed by things like bright lights, strong smells, coarse fabrics, or sirens close by. I have a rich, complex inner life. I am made uncomfortable by loud noises. I am deeply moved by the arts or music. My nervous system sometimes feels so frazzled that I just have to go off by myself. I am conscientious. I startle easily. I get rattled when I have a lot to do in a short amount of time. When people are uncomfortable in a physical environment, I tend to know what needs to be done to make it more comfortable, like changing the lighting or the seating. I'm annoyed when people try to get me to do too many things at once. I try hard to avoid making mistakes or forgetting things. I make a point to avoid violent movies and TV shows. I become unpleasantly aroused when a lot is going on around me. Being very hungry creates a strong reaction in me, disrupting my concentration or mood. Changes in my life shake me up. I notice and enjoy delicate or fine scents, tastes, sounds, works of art. I find it unpleasant to have a lot going on at once. I make it a high priority to arrange my life to avoid upsetting or overwhelming situations. I am bothered by intense stimuli like loud noises or chaotic scenes. When I must compete or be observed while performing a task, I become so nervous or shaky that I do much worse than I would otherwise. When I was a child, my parents or teachers seemed to see me as sensitive or shy. Okay, Suze, let's tally your check marks. How many do you have?
19.
Okay. According to Dr. Elaine Aaron, if you answered more than 14 of the questions as true of yourself, you are probably highly sensitive.
I was also half taking the quiz on Nathan's behalf because some of those were
spot on.
Oh my God. Spot on.
on.
Uh-huh.
There's only a few. Suze, I got 24.
As you have been talking about this, I was like, I don't know that I'm highly sensitive, but I think that Laura is like way over there on the scale.
Way.
So I'm not surprised because some of those I was like, I mean, I guess I could argue for it. The other thing that I kept thinking is I feel like I have tried to shape a life where I manage this. So I'm not sure if left to my own devices, like if I didn't meditate for an hour a day.
That's right.
I might have answered more. Do you know what I mean?
Because I think about you and I'm like, well, the need to meditate or the choice to meditate, like, did it come from this sense of awareness of like, wow, I need this still time away from stimulus, and you do it twice a day. You also sort of construct your life to not have to live a lot of drama.
That's right.
On the side of a mountain.
Not have a lot of drama.
Not chaos. Not having it.
Right. I'm not
in a room, Suze. I've seen you. If there does seem to be like, competing stimuli, you will get control of that shit quickly. You really will. And I think like, I wonder if, yeah. And I mean that in the most positive way. You'll just I'm just
trying to think of an
example. We're going to organize this. Multiple conversations going on at once.
That's
Some
right.
people over here don't seem to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
we've got this.
You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
You are amazing at it. So I do wonder, to your point about like, is it because you have so just astoundingly managed it?
Yeah. But 24, Laura.
24.
That's well over 14. You're 10
well
above.
over 14.
Okay.
Well into it. The only thing like that trips me up is this: I tend to be very sensitive to pain. What's interesting is that I have a really high pain tolerance, I think, and pain threshold personally. But if I do see someone else in pain, like I will have that sensation of.
You just said you can barely handle it just because you're a spongy little sponge.
Little sponge.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that you definitely, Nathan, and very probably you, I think, are both highly sensitive people to some degree. But are you an empath?
That is the next question. Now, this is my prediction.
Yeah.
You are. I am not. That is my prediction.
Okay. Let's do it.
Let's see.
And honestly, and also, I'd love to hear from people, our listeners. If you make some discoveries, please write us. Please tell us what you
send us your CERTA sleep number of sensitivity. Like we want to know.
I love it.
Yes. Okay.
I love it. Okay. So slightly different. Empaths and highly sensitive people. Not all highly sensitive people are empaths, so I'll go quickly on this one. This test was developed by Dr. Orloff and can be found on her website, drjudithorloff.com. Again, just mark a check mark if the answer is yes to the question.
Okay.
There are 20 questions, so give yourself a check mark if the answer is yes. Have I been labeled as overly sensitive, shy, or introverted? Do I frequently get overwhelmed or anxious? Do arguments or yelling make me ill? Do I often feel like I don't fit in? Am I drained by crowds and need alone time to revive myself? Am I overstimulated by noise, odors, or nonstop talkers? Do I have chemical sensitivities or can't tolerate scratchy clothes? Do I prefer taking my own car places so I can leave early if I need to? That's so specific and genius. Do I overeat to cope with stress? Am I afraid of becoming suffocated by intimate relationships? Do I startle easily? Do I react strongly to caffeine or medications? Do I have a low pain threshold? Do I tend to socially isolate? Do I absorb other people's stress, emotions, or symptoms? Am I overwhelmed by multitasking and prefer doing one thing at a time? Do I replenish myself in nature? Do I need a long time to recuperate after being with difficult people or energy vampires? Do I feel better in small cities or the country than large cities? Do I prefer one-to-one interactions or small groups rather than large gatherings? And that's it. Let's tally it up.
Okay. Again, I was sidebar taking this for Nathan.
One for Nathan, one for you.
But I'll let him cough up his own numbers. I got 12.
Okay. So here's our scale here. If you answered yes to 1 to 5 questions, you're at least partially an empath.
Huh.
Responding yes to 6 to 10 questions means you have moderate empathic tendencies. Responding yes to 11 to 15 means you have strong empathic tendencies.
Huh.
And answering yes to more than 15 questions means you are a full-blown empath.
Let me guess how many you're full-blown. You've got full-blown empathy.
Full-blown. But I answered 15, so I could say either strong empathic or full-blown.
But that, like the specificity of that question about what was the one about
bring your
does
own
something
car. Oh,
but
no,
bring your own car, but what makes you sick? Like it makes you ill.
Arguing and yelling. Yeah.
Makes you ill. Now think about you as a kid.
Yes.
And think about how, oh my God.
And just like that knot in my stomach. Yeah.
Oh my God. This is amazing. And I'm actually surprised. And I wonder if I was asked this before I started meditating and moved to the side of a mountain, if my answers would be different. Because I do think I have managed my life in a sort of way to make it as livable and as enjoyable as possible for myself.
100%. I mean, because I wondered how you answered the question, do I socially isolate? Because I think, many of us know you as someone who's very gregarious, very social, can talk to anyone, but you live on the side of a mountain. So one might say, well, you isolated yourself to a certain degree to start. And then as long as you have that, and maybe that is part of as long as I know that, at the end of the day, I'm returning to that. I'm returning to this place. Yeah, I think it's really interesting, Suze.
I do too.
So what do we make of all of this?
What do we make of it?
Well, Suze, there's many, 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 many articles being written about this specific moment in time, about the importance of empathy, because empathy is the ability to connect with others, to feel with them, to act with compassion. And there are many people who are concerned that we've seen an alarming lack of empathy in the world in the past few years. Empathy is critical if we're going to work together and get along as human beings and to thrive as a society. So there's that. We could do a whole other spark of just the importance of empathy now that we have an understanding of what it is. But I also think that, to me, what we make of it, if we are highly sensitive people or empaths, we freaking own it. Just loud and proud.
Quiet and proud. Just quietly and proud.
I'm boldly and proudly saying I'm an empath. Maria Popova writes in her online journal, Brain Pickings, which I know you love.
Yes.
We make art with everything we are, the doom and the glory of it. We make art to know ourselves, to locate ourselves in the web of being, to make ourselves more alive. We make art that, at its best, helps other people locate themselves and live. And I think as creatives, feeling, emoting, expressing ourselves is essential to our creativity, and highly sensitive people can really lead the way there. There's no shame in feeling our feelings. We can take it in and appreciate art and music and all kinds of creativity because we feel things so deeply. Let us embrace it.
Love it.
Embrace it above all. There are some creative roadblocks that can be specific to highly sensitive people, and this being a podcast about creativity, I think it's important that we mention, if you're creative, that you should be aware of them and learn to manage them. For example, because we're always picking up on other people's energy, it can be hard to discern what energy is ours and what is not ours to carry.
Yes, as you were saying.
As I was saying. So sometimes we can get confused about which voice in our head is intuition, which is fear, which is someone else's voice entirely. So it can be a bit of a
feelings.
scramble.
Yes.
That's right. It's like, wait, this isn't my feeling. This is someone else's feeling.
Yeah.
So the website creativekatrina.com, which I really liked, by the way, says meditation, quiet time, regular brainstorming time, or creative play time, walks in nature, doing some grounding exercises, all of those things can help. A combination of these things done consistently helps craft a baseline for knowing what goes where more quickly and easily over time. So it can really help us to like sort all of those feelings and stimuli coming at us. Another roadblock for creative empaths is other people's feelings. Because we feel their feelings, we are prone to putting them ahead of our own.
Ooh.
And we may feel guilty if we put ourselves first. We may feel bad when we say no to a social invite because we wanted to spend the evening writing. Even if we say no, we don't get any writing done because we spend so much time and energy feeling bad and knowing how they feel and that we cause those feelings. It can get messy. So it's best to keep an eye on that pattern. And again, try not to pick up on other people's feelings, and certainly try not to rank them as more important than your own. And again, from creativekatrina.com, when you're absorbing so much from others, it can be challenging to know what your actual creative voice sounds like.
Yeah.
So understanding your unique voice and noticing when it's being crowded out by a lot of other noise is a big creative roadblock for an empath.
That's amazing.
Right? So Katrina says, for many years, I only wrote for others or edited other people's content instead of writing my own. I had no idea what my voice sounded like. A creative voice is part of our personal identity, our authentic self. When other people's juju has invaded us completely, the empath's creative voice needs to be rediscovered and nurtured bit by bit to come to the surface, whether it's through writing, painting, vlogging, cooking, community building, crafting, what have you. The voice living within needs to be invited to show up and have room to expand. It may not feel natural or safe at first, but it's definitely there. So stick with it.
Wow.
Finally, a little bit of self-care and self-awareness goes a long way. If you know you need downtime to recover from big events or noisy places, book that time for yourself. Make it a priority. Take regular social media fasts. Simply avoid news cycles that disturb you or work you up. I find that if I read my news rather than watch my news, I stay more calm and centered.
Yes.
So I made that adjustment. And after years of feeling like there was something wrong with me and that I needed to change something about myself to fit within the world, I now embrace my empathetic nature. I've built a world around it. Suze, I think you've built a world around it. And I can say, like, I surround myself with people who accept that I'm an empath and enjoy that quality about me rather than ask me to change it. It simply is a truth about me, a truth that I wholeheartedly embrace. And if it is true for you, dear listeners, if it is true for you, Suze, I hope we're all able to embrace it too.
Camion, this is so good. Good
News you can use?
grief. I mean, here's something that I'm thinking about is I feel like I need to, maybe someone's already made this infographic, but I feel like I really want to drill down and understand. You've unpacked this so beautifully, like the highly sensitive person, that trait, the empathic trait, and then I want to understand how it fits in with introversion.
Where they intersect.
I heard you say that not all introverts are highly sensitive or empathic. There can be extroverts in there. And I just in a desire to understand myself and others, I want to understand, get my mind around all of that. Yeah. So that's,
remember,
I'm thinking about that.
When I take those tests, I am an extrovert. But And I argue about that because I'm like, I don't think so. I have to have this downtime. I have to
but that could
recover.
Be a function of your empathic nature.
That's exactly right. And so that was helpful for me too, of like, okay. So maybe both of those things can be true. I always joke, for anyone who's had the test about like whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. Susan and I took these tests in a business class recently together. Yeah. And there's several questions about like, if you're at a party, would you be the one introducing people to people? Or another question is like, if you're at a party, are you sitting in a corner? Or are you talking? Are you like the center of a circle telling a story? And I'm like, well, if I'm at the party, I'm introducing people and I'm talking to people, but this says nothing about what it would take me to get me to go to the party in the first place. And so I'm like, this is a faulty question.
And how much recovery time you would need after the party.
Recovery time. That's right.
And was there somebody at the party who was struggling? And so you absorbed their Shakti,
took it home, had to relieve myself of it some way.
And if you did drugs at the party, did you have a strong response to the drugs at the party as you would if you're an empath? Like all of it. No, all of it. Like it's
fascinating.
So I'm fascinated by it. And I don't just want to repeat your spark back to you, but there's so many aspects of it that I am fascinated by. And the watch points that you shared about how it can be, as you said, it can be incredibly useful for a creative to possess these traits. And there are things to look out for.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And And I think like as we continue to work with clients, I know that we have some clients currently who are familiar with the concept of highly sensitive person and who identify as such. I think we have others who have expressed some of those roadblocks that now we might be able to work backwards from to discover, is this your HSP or empath that's, causing this? Yeah, I think this is going to be a really useful tool.
Oh, this is so cool, Laura. This is just amazing. What a good spark.
Thanks.
From one HSP/empath to another.
I'll take it.
Spark. That was great. I cannot wait for Nathan to take this quiz.
Oh, good. I'm so excited.
But that's not going to happen now. What's going to happen now? I'm going to spark back at you.
Love it.
The spark fire! I've got this little highly sensitive dog in my lap. We'll see if she wants to cozy up. I do think she is highly sensitive. And we talk about it. She's hyper vigilant, and it's sort of her nature. It's wired into her.
Yeah.
God love her. And I relate deeply. So this is interesting because there are pieces of what you just shared that I feel like dovetail into what I'm going to share with you.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah. So this spark that I'm going to share with you was originally shared with us by... Can you hear Kitty shaking her ears out in the background? That's one of the things that makes her highly sensitive to sound. She has such gigantic ears. She can hear everything on this mountain. But this spark was originally shared with us by Celia Keenan-Bolger. Thank you, Celia.
Hi, Celia.
And the spark that I'm going to be sparking at you all today is Priya Parker's book, The Art of Gathering.
Yes.
I actually talked about this book recently when I shared my spark about the power of why. So don't worry if you missed that episode. I'm going to catch you up and then some. But let's start with the person and the work at the center of this spark, Priya Parker.
Priya
Parker is, Laura, I'm going to say it once and I'm going to say it 10 times.
Yeah.
Her work and this book are extraordinary.
I cannot wait. I've had this book. Here's my little story about this book. I had this book. When I left New York at the beginning of the pandemic, there was only room in my bag for a certain number of books. And that was one that I was like, do I bring? No. And it didn't make it into the bag. And then we've talked about it 10 times and I'm like lamenting, but it's back in my apartment.
Well, I'm going to give you a little overview, but Laura, this book is so rich and it is so jam-packed that as always, just the tip of the Sparkberg over here, but it is, I love it. If you're anybody who is whether you're an event planner, a teacher, a moderator, this book is so useful for so many different kinds of people. A theater maker, like it is.
If you run a meeting, I mean, does it address meetings too?
Oh yes. My God. So,
yes.
Okay. So let's just get into it.
Okay.
In her book, Priya says that she comes to gatherings and the art of gathering. She's not a chef. She's not an event planner, but she is someone who's trained in group dialogue and conflict resolution. And she spent the last 15, Yes. For some reason, I had in my mind that she was like an event planner or an event specialist.
Yeah, that would
but
make
sense. No. She's like a professional facilitator. And she has spent the past 15 years of her life studying, designing, and advising gatherings whose goals were to be transformative for the people involved and the communities that they were trying to affect. So now she's a professional facilitator and she is trained in shaping group dynamics and collective conversations. And her job, as she sees it, is to gather the right people in a room and help them to connect for a specific larger purpose. So in her book, The Art of Gathering, which I will also say is beautifully art directed. Whoever did that and her website, it is
nice.
I just want to eat her website with a spoon. It's so beautiful. But
like a sorbet.
Like a sorbet. Priya defines gathering as any time 3 or more people come together for a purpose with a beginning, middle, and an end. But the book and Priya's work goes so much deeper. Before we dig into it, Cams, how do you feel? You just mentioned this a little bit in your spark. How do you feel about gatherings in all their forms? So I know this is a wide array, but meetings and parties and networking events and moderating events and teaching. How do you feel about gatherings?
Well, as a highly sensitive person,
and an
empath, Suze. It's funny that each time you've said come together to gather with purpose, I find myself far more comfortable and willing to attend something if I understand what the purpose is. And what are we doing there? What is happening in this scene is very important to me and helps me wrap my brain around it.
And you said recently on a call with a client, you feel better going to a social gathering when there's going to be an activity, like we're going to play cards.
Oh my God, 100%.
Our hands are going to be doing something. And then over the top of that, we may talk, we may,
that is correct.
We may bust bowls, but there's going to be cards. There's going to be cards.
I've seen you play cards.
I've seen you play cards.
And that's where the ball busting happens.
A different side of you comes out. It's fascinating.
It's true. It's
a little devil. You're a little devil.
It's true. It's true. It's the ball busting.
That makes sense. What you're saying makes total sense.
Can I just I got to shout out to a couple of people. We can't have that and me not say hi to Bryn and Casey and Kat and Tim and Scott. I'll just, enough said. Cards.
Is that your poker night crew?
It's worse than that. It's an old grandma game that we play, but we play it as though it's like professional poker. Yeah.
Do you play for money?
No, but you know what? I wouldn't mind. I would. I totally would do it.
Hey.
But
Take it to
hey,
the limit.
I'm gonna put
New
that in my
chapters.
spark file. I might do a whole
it.
spark. Let's talk about it.
Did we ever talk on this? No, I think I told this story on the podcast about how Nathan, when he was little, they would play toy poker. I did talk about that. How his group, it's in my spark file, and I'm almost certain I've talked about it.
Yeah.
So he grew up in Nevada, and a lot of the parents of that friend group of those kids they worked in the casinos, they were dealers, they were cocktail waitresses, etc. And the kids would bring their toys and they would play toy poker. I know I've talked about this.
Oh my God. Amazing.
Yeah, and he still to this day remembers that's where I got my Garfield stuffed animal playing toy poker, and who he got it from and what he lost in toy poker at any event.
Okay, we're going to have a whole card spark. That's what we're going to do. We're going to have a card spark.
Oh, you're a shark. Okay, so I think what you're talking about, though, having an activity, having a purpose, those things, those are the kind of factors that can make a gathering come alive for you.
I can go a step further.
Yeah.
Anytime, like I knew what my role was. So let's say, we're going to we're a Blue Man Group. We're going to the Grammys. I have a job to do. I'm doing the red carpet. I'm speaking to journalists. I'm doing this, and this. I know what I'm doing. If I'm just there, and your job is just to go and be there.
Yeah.
Oof. Anxiety.
Interesting. Love it. I love your self-awareness about that. And I think Priya Parker would love it too. In The Art of Gathering, Priya writes about how important gatherings are to human experience, but she feels like too often we don't give them enough thought. She writes, any number of studies support a notion that's obvious to many of us. Much of the time we spend in gatherings with other people disappoints us. Mm-hmm. Duncan Green, a blogger and specialist in international development, confesses in The Guardian, with the occasional exception, my mood in conferences usually swings between boredom, despair, and rage. And then Priya goes on to say, as much as our gatherings disappoint us, though, we tend to keep gathering in the same tired ways. Most of us remain on autopilot when we bring people together, following stale formulas, hoping that chemistry of a good meeting, conference, or party will somehow take care of itself, that thrilling results will magically emerge from the usual staid inputs. It is almost always a vain hope. But never fear, because Priya posits that with some conscious thought and planning, and with her expert guidance, she really shows us how to take our gatherings from tired, boring, and excruciating to living and vibrant and transformational. And as we have talked about on this podcast, I'm just going to do a little recap for the people that haven't heard the episode. The health of a good gathering starts at the roots. As I said back in my spark on the power of why, Priya encourages people to really consider why they are gathering and really drill down to the purpose of the gathering at its deepest level. Now, that's the kind of gathering you, Laura Camion, would seem to respond to. So, in case you missed it, Priya said, think back to the last several gatherings you hosted or attended, a networking event, a book club, a volunteer training. If I were to ask you or your host the purpose behind each of those gatherings, I wouldn't be surprised to hear what I often do in my work, what you were supposed to do at the gathering. So the networking night, you might tell me, was intended to help people in similar fields meet one another. The book club was organized to get us to read a book together. The volunteer training was arranged to train volunteers. When we gather, we often make the mistake of conflating category with purpose. We outsource our decisions and our assumptions about our gatherings to people, formats, and contexts that are not our own. We get lulled into the false belief that knowing the category of the gathering, the board meeting, workshop, birthday party, town hall, will be instructive to designing it. But we often choose the template and the activities and structure that go along with it before we're clear on purpose. She goes on to say, when we don't examine the deeper assumptions behind why we gather, we end up skipping too quickly to replicating old, staid formats of gathering, and we forego the possibility of creating something memorable, even transformative. She urges us, before we gather, to ask ourselves, why is this gathering different from all my other gatherings? Why is it different from other people's gatherings of the same general type? What is this that other gatherings aren't? And she really wants us to take the time for a deeper dive. She says, take the reasons you think you are gathering. For instance, because it's our departmental Monday morning meeting, because it's a family tradition to barbecue at the lake, and keep drilling below them. Ask why you're doing it. Every time you get to another deeper reason, ask why again. Keep asking why until you hit a belief or value. So Laura, you've heard all this when I did that spark on the power of why, but you are getting ready to take a vacation. You are going to the lake for a traditional family vacation. You have taken it several years in a row.
Yes.
And I want to read you a passage from Priya's book. And I want you to think about your upcoming family vacation. And I want you to plug it in. When I say neighborhood potluck, I want you to plug in traditional family vacation at the lake. Yep.
Okay, great.
Okay. So these are Priya's words. Let's take a look at how we might move from the what to the why of something as simple as a neighborhood potluck or a trip to the lake. So why are you having a neighborhood potluck / vacation at the lake? And the answer might be because we like potlucks. We have one every year. But why do you have one every year? And your answer might be because we like to get our neighbors together at the beginning of the summer. But why do you like to get your neighbors together at the beginning of the summer? I guess if you really think about it, it's a way of marking the time and reconnecting after the hectic school year. And why is that important? Because when we have more time in the summer to be together, it's when we remember what community is, and it helps us forge the bonds that make this a great place to live and safer, and a place that embodies the values we want our children to grow up with, like that strangers aren't scary. Priya concludes, now we're getting somewhere. So Laura, when you hear that, does that give you any deeper ideas about why you all are gathering for the umpteenth time for your family vacation at the lake? Like, what is the deeper purpose?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the why is that we value what it means to be family, and we value the bonds that are formed through spending time together. Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. And when you have talked about those trips to the lake, even when it's getting closer and you start talking about it and the way that you want to protect your time around it, it seems like even though you all may have never discussed it, but maybe you have, that there does seem to be more purpose to it than just like tradition, because you're a person who, as you just said, is drawn to gatherings where purpose is sewn into them. And you seem drawn to that gathering at that lake.
Oh, 100%. But we also are doing things, Suze. We're doing things. So, there's water skiing and surfing behind the boat and sometimes card playing. And, so we are active for sure. And that's super fun. And I enjoy that aspect to it. And it helps me rather than we're going to be together for 5 days and what are we going to do?
Anxiety. You're not worried about that. You're not worried about that.
Not at all. Not at all.
I think it's interesting, and it might be maybe to go and do a little research over cards or while you're in the boat to just have a little conversation about maybe what the deeper purpose of that vacation is.
I think it's really, really interesting. And it's not my family, it's Wes's family.
Right.
And which I am so grateful to be a part of, and to be a part of that family is such an honor and a joy. And his cousin Audra, I'm going to talk to her about this because Audra, if you're listening, hi, I can't wait to see you.
Hi.
She's instrumental in really keeping the family together and creating these events. I'm going to ask Audra if she's read this book, because she is the person who it makes sure that this happens each year. And it's, a million people's schedules and a million people's things to sort through. And the commitment to family and love of family, I think, is behind all of it.
I love that so much. And I also love that there's a hummingbird on the hummingbird feeder right now.
I think that's a good sign. We started talking about
I do too.
Audra, and a hummingbird came up. Mm-hmm.
Can I just suggest, if you wanted to take her a little present, get her a copy of this book and bring it to her. That's a spark for you.
Okay.
Take it.
Okay,
leave
I'm
it,
doing it.
Tell me to fuck myself.
I'm doing it. Audra, if you hear this, act surprised.
Priya calls this this idea of that deeper thought the Passover principle, because of a question that is ritually asked at traditional Jewish Seder on the holy day. Why is this night different from all other nights? And she encourages the reader, before you gather, ask yourself, why is this gathering different from all my other gatherings? Why is it different from other people's gatherings of the same general type? What is this that other gatherings aren't? She goes on to say that a good gathering purpose should also be disputable. This concept I love. So, for instance, a disputable concept around a wedding. If you say the purpose of your wedding is to celebrate love, it may bring a smile to people's faces because you aren't really committing to anything, because who would dispute that purpose? Yes, a wedding should celebrate love, of course, but an indisputable purpose like that doesn't help you with the hard work of creating a meaningful gathering, because it won't help you make decisions. When the inevitable tensions arise around guest list, venue, one night versus two, your purpose won't be there to guide you. I love this so much. A disputable purpose, on the other hand, begins to be a decision filter. If you commit to a purpose of your wedding as a ceremonial repayment of your parents for all they've done for you as you set off to build your own family, that is disputable, and it will immediately help you make choices. That one remaining seat will go to your parents' long-lost friend, not your estranged college buddy. If, on the other hand, you commit to the equally valid purpose of a wedding as a melding of a new couple with a tribe of people with whom they feel most open, that too is disputable, and it implies clear and different answers. The parent's friend may have to stand down for the college buddy. So I love this concept in all sorts of gatherings. I love it when I think about our classes that we lead. I love it when we think about parties that we throw. And we actually did this with my first wedding. That's right, Liz Taylor, my first wedding. So
I'm sorry. I got a kick out of that.
So my now ex-husband, we made the decision. We made a really conscious decision around purpose that we wanted to bring our nearest and dearest together to blend and to bond and to hear our vows and to support us in keeping those vows.
Yes.
That was our purpose. So that core purpose impacted all different aspects of planning the wedding. The limited number of specific people who were present. And I remember, Camian, you were dating somebody and you came to me and you said, may I bring them to the wedding? And it pained me to do it, but I said, I'm so sorry, but you can't.
Do you want to know something? I think that was a good call because I don't even remember who I was dating.
There you go.
Good call.
We were really honed in on the people that were going to be present for that.
Yes.
Were really critical members of our communities.
100%. I remember that. And your purpose was clear. You made it clear.
Yeah. It was super, super clear. But it impacted, that purpose impacted, again, those specific people that were present, the language we used in the ceremony, the way we had people, the formation of the way people gathered for the wedding. We had everybody, every single person that was present touched the rings and sort of put like a wish or a blessing on them. But it led to dispute. We didn't invite children to our wedding because we wanted emotionally mature people who understood what they were present for, who could hear the vows and support us in keeping those vows when things got tough. And that was a point, talk about disputable. That was a point of conflict for my family, but I stood by that purpose. And I have to tell you, it was a remarkable wedding. It was a remarkable wedding.
A
it
gorgeous, stunning, emotionally moving experience for everyone.
I accidentally, when I read Priya's book, I was like, oh my God, I accidentally adhered to a lot of the concepts in her book.
I don't know if it was accidental. I think you're very
intuitively.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Another reason that gathering was remarkable was the location. And this is something that Priya talks about. We chose a remote artist's retreat. And that location pulled the guests out of their day-to-day. It was creative, which was really important to us.
Yes.
And because there was nothing nearby, it kept guests together and focused on the purpose of the gathering and bonding, which was important to our purpose and it's another key to having a transformational gathering.
Yes.
Yeah. Priya says what many hosts don't realize is that the choice of venue is one of your most powerful levers over your guests' behavior. A deft gatherer picks a place that elicits the behavior they want and plays down the behaviors they don't want.
So when you have your conference in Las Vegas, for example, you are, competing with not always the best of a person. You're competing with the temptations that are pulling your attention in other directions. Wow.
Unless there's specific reasons that you want people to be surrounded by those sorts of things.
Yep.
A key to a great location is another concept that Priya presents, which is displacement. She says, a venue can and should do one further thing: displace people. Displacement is simply about breaking people out of their habits. It's about waking people up from the slumber of their own routines. As a facilitator, I seek to do that through the questions I ask and the exercises I run, but it is also possible to achieve a great deal of displacement through the choice of space. And to help illustrate that concept of displacement, Priya gives this example of this famed photographer, Clayton. Clayton has photographed every sitting U.S. president from Jimmy Carter all the way through, as the writing of this book, Barack Obama. He's photographed world leaders and infamous despots and famed protesters and hundreds of celebrities. And for many of his sessions, he's not always able to choose the location. He's often just given 10 minutes with a head of state backstage at some event or at a concert or in a cramped hotel room to get a shot. And in those cases, he can't control the location to the extent he'd like. But regardless of the location, he brings this decrepit, falling apart, white painted crate for his subjects to sit on. And this old white crate is something he's had every one of his subjects sit on. And apparently some presidential advance teams see the box and they freak out and they say, we can't ask the president to sit on that box. And then Clayton tells them every other person who has sat to be photographed on that box, and they always acquiesce.
Wow.
And in doing that, he's not only blowing minds, but Clayton is also displacing his subjects from the context that they're in, and is, through this physical object, connecting them to all the other photo shoots and all the other people who have come before them.
Through time
and space. So he may only have 7 minutes with the president, but those 7 minutes are going to be defined by his space and his context, not theirs.
Wow.
And Priya, in the story, she's a beautiful storyteller. And one of the reasons this book is so good is because the number of supporting examples she gives through storytelling in this book make it so rich and so understandable. I can't recommend this book highly enough. So she tells how after years of lugging it around, this box finally fell apart. And Clayton had his assistants remake a new box to look exactly like this old, weathered original, because it had become this sort of symbol of temporarily displacing a leader from their throne.
That's amazing. A simple thing.
Displacement is a key to a great gathering. Another gem that Priya shares is talking about ways of fusing your gathering, creating a good kind of shock to the system with the people that you're gathering to focus and bond them. And she gives, speaking of boxes, she gives another example of a ritual called Box. Jill Soloway, they made the show Transparent, used on that production. So essentially, at the beginning of each filming day, after breakfast and before the first scene is shot, the cast and crew gather and start chanting box, 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 box. And what's called like an apple box, which is essentially a crate that is used in filmmaking, is brought out and put on the floor. And anyone who wants to can get up and say something.
Wow.
And that can, yes, Laura, when I read this, I was like, this is extraordinary because it takes about 20 or 40 minutes, which is a lot of time in the world of film and television making. Those shoot dates are very, very long, but it concludes with the entire cast and crew really knowing each other and being bonded into a cohesive group. And I have to believe that over the course of a long series like Transparent, it would make for a healthier, happier, more productive, more in sync work environment. So it might be one of those things that it's like, yes, it takes 20 to 40 minutes a day, but we earn that time back because we're working so cohesively together.
That's right. A little bit of prevention can really, like that's that kind of intentional work on the front end. You have less cleanup to do on the back end.
I will tell you, as somebody who recently joined the cast of a television show, I crave something like this because socially, I just basically am dating somebody in a family, like a big family that's been together for a long time. And I feel, even though I'm a very socially adept person, I'm like, this is tough. It's tough to meet everybody. It's tough to learn everybody's names. Not only learn everybody's names, but then learn their characters' names, to learn everybody's pronouns.
Everyone else with
everyone's jobs and understanding how it all works together. And I can imagine it would be a really cool way in to have something like this. We did it on the first day that I was there. It was extraordinary, and we've never done it again. We did it because it was a special day, and I was introduced on that day, and that was, but I didn't get to learn all 200 people's names. Yeah. So I can imagine that the box tradition would be an amazing thing to do. So put that in your Spark file.
Heck yeah.
I saw you take a little note as I was saying that. What's going on over there?
Oh, it was about the box. Yeah, I was just, thinking about that. And hearing people's voices, we do that in our class, our classrooms. It's important to, they say, that if you've used your voice once already, when the moment comes to really say something, you're more likely to say something. And I wonder about that in this regard too, like on a set. Yeah. If you're someone who has literally like never spoken before, you're 3 months into your shoot and maybe you have something really important to add, but this can't be the first time you say something ever. And now the moment has passed and now you're 5 months into it. And you're just like, you got to get people's voices moving. You've got to get the permission to speak out there. And I just like, that's just really exciting to me.
I love it. And when I'm running rooms or when we're running rooms, we definitely build that into the gathering, but it is unusual. It is not the norm.
It is. It's time consuming. And I think it's the first thing that people think to like, well, we're not going to have time for that. Like, well, not making time for this on the front end is going to alter maybe the rewards you reap in the end. Yeah. In terms of communication, in terms of relationship building, in terms of connection
bonding
between people,
fusing them, building an ensemble. If you're in an ensemble making, whether that is a team, like a business team, or a troupe of players in a theatrical context. Absolutely. Here's another example of fusing an audience. You can fuse an audience while giving a lecture. Yeah. Do you know Esther Perel, Laura, the relationship and sex therapist?
I mean, not personally, yes, but I'm familiar.
But you know of her work.
Yeah.
Love her work. And
I feel like I might know about her because of you. I think she might have been in a Spark previously.
Maybe. Okay. Yes, probably. She is a Spark in and of herself. Her work and she are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
She regularly addresses big crowds, big talks, 1,000+ people. And in addition to her intriguing content, Esther Perel is so sought after because of how she connects audience members to one another. I'm going to use Priya's words, signaling in subtle ways that they are not alone. If someone asks Perel a question about cheating or divorce or boredom, before answering it, she'll look out at the audience and ask, how many of you can relate to this question? Or who also wonders about this?
Yes.
In that simple act, she transformed one person's question into a collective experience. And Laura, I was like, take it, write it down, put it in your Spark file, tattoo it on your forehead. I thought that was so brilliant for us as moderators. I was just like, that is brilliant.
Who else wonders about that?
Who else wonders about
and
that?
All hands fly into the air. Yes.
Yeah. It really engages people. Another example, this book is chock-a-block with such great storytelling. Another example Priya cites about how to fuse people comes from a first grade Montessori school teacher named Daniel Barrett. And this is how Mr. Barrett teaches the incoming first graders about the concept of community. On the first day of school, he takes a ball of string and throws it to a student, saying something nice to them. And then the child continues the practice, holding their part of the string and throwing the ball to another student and saying another nice thing, and so on until the group has built a spider web of string. Daniel Barrett says to the kids, if I tug my end of the web, everyone feels it move. And that's what a community is. All your choices, all your actions, large or small, will affect everybody else. Barrett has found a creative, age-appropriate way to remind his students, who are the members of his gathering, why they're doing what they're doing. A thoughtful opening moment like that can change the course of a gathering, even one whose duration is measured in years.
You know what else it does? It sets the stage for having empathy for each other as well, because we are all connected. That is such a glorious way to illustrate.
Yeah.
When one of us feels something, we all feel it. When something's happening with one person, it's happening to all of us.
Yes, I love it, Laura. And I can also imagine just the power of being in a room full of people you are meeting for the first time, whether you're a little or a big, and saying something kind as you engage in an activity. Like, I can totally see it, and we're totally going to take that and take that.
I totally want to do that as an adult.
I do too.
Yes.
And I want to use that really good, thick, puffy yarn. That really good. I'm seeing hot pink. Yes. Okay. Priya also looks closely at how important thoughtfully crafted conclusions are to any gathering.
Ooh.
And she talks a lot about how, and she's the other the thing that's so great about this book is she uses a lot of examples from her life where she has not followed her own rules and failed. And she talks about this one meeting that she was in. I can't remember if she was just in attendance at it or if she helped organize it, but they had failed to craft an ending, a conclusion to the gathering. And so the speaker was just like, that's it. And people just sat there because they were, they built to this moment. And the speaker was like,
and
that's it. It's over. Bye. And how they had just lost this opportunity for a powerful conclusion. So I'm happy to say we do this at the Met Opera's Educator Conference, which I've moderated for the past 4 years, I think. Instead of just finishing the last presentation and saying, that's it, everybody, we hope you enjoyed it, bye, we have carefully crafted this last act of the gathering. And whether it's held live or whether it's held over Zoom, which it has been through the pandemic, we make time near the end to contemplate and share with each other what we've learned. We do an exercise that sort of weaves all of that learning into a moment together. We have an exchange of gratitude, and we sort of are, and this is the theater person in me, like the theater maker and the storyteller in me, we always conclude it like a story and seal it with like some sort of
kiss,
proverbial kiss. Like we really do. And it's wonderful. Our friend Thomas would call that the kiss goodnight. Like he always like does something to make sure that there's a magical moment. Sometimes it calls back to something that we all experienced earlier, like 3 days earlier, it will call back to that.
Yes.
So it's really, this book is so good. And I went on her website, which again is beautifully designed, and she is bringing it all into this moment as well. Now that we're all vaccinated and we're beginning to spend time together in person, she is preparing people to make that transition back into live gathering. As our dear, wise friend and client, Tammy Evans, says, transitioning from pandemicing to peopling. Priya is beginning to prepare people for that.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And we need it, you know.
And she poses these really thoughtful questions on her website. She says, how do we regather? The decks have been cleared and we have an opportunity. She encourages people to think about these questions in terms of your own experience. Number 1, what did you long for when we couldn't physically gather? What did you find yourself daydreaming about from the before times that you cannot wait to get back to doing with people? She then asks, number 2, what did you discover that you want to keep? Did you have any experiences that improved connection with others this past year? That weekly family video call, more cooking at home, a slower social schedule? So number 1, what did you long for?
Yes.
Number 2, what did you discover that you want to keep?
Yes.
And number 3, what gathering needs reinvention? What specific gathering would you really love to rework or try anew? And I thought those were such great questions. It's so funny when I think about what did you long for when we couldn't physically gather? I don't have a lot that I longed for it, but I have heard people we know and love, Celia Keenan Bolger, who referred this book, who I think she really longs to get back together with people. Whereas I'm sort of like, let's live on Zoom forever, you know? But
interesting.
You know what I did long for? What? I longed for our holiday party. Like we have an annual holiday party. It's very small, but I did long for that. Is there anything that you longed for, Laura?
I would say small group conversation. Like I really longed for like the idea of like 4 to 6 people having a meal and like incredible conversation that's like deep and meaningful and intellectual and like thought provoking, makes me walk away thinking new thoughts and exploring new ideas in my head for days after. But I do also think like I did replace that. Like I got a lot of that from Zoom. So, you know, so it's a slight longing, but I did find other ways to do it. But I do look forward to, you know, Wes and Nathan joining us for a meal and all of us getting to chit chat about anything and everything.
Did you discover anything during the pandemic times that you want to keep?
100%. One, that we can work with people all over the world, that we are able to have like incredibly connective and deep and meaningful sessions with our clients over Zoom from anywhere. That's A. And that anywhere, like that our classes have come together with people from everywhere, which is just beyond exciting.
It's a miracle.
I think that, and then I think some other, you know, family connections like through Zoom or college friends that I'm like, oh yeah, there's no reason why we can't actually see each other's face. We didn't do this before, but let's keep doing this now. Yeah.
And the third question, what gathering needs reinvention? What specific gathering would you really love to rework or try anew? And I have to say, I can't wait for you to read Priya Parker's book, The Art of Gathering, because there are so many, it's not reinvention, but there are so many good ideas. There are so many sparks that I and even things I'm holding back from saying on the podcast because I want to maintain surprise when we do them with the group.
Oh, that's incredible. I'm excited to dig into it too. Yeah, this is great. Suze, this
so
is
good.
Fantastic.
I can't even tell you, I am so skating over the surface because I'm just, this book is encyclopedic in the depth of it is so good, Laura. It is
Suze,
so good.
It's like, I think we've done other books on this podcast where it's like, I'm not actually covering this book. I'm covering like a chapter of this book because so often like the books that we love are chapter after chapter after chapter of amazing ideas.
This might be a book that you spark back at me. I wouldn't be surprised if you read this book.
Okay.
You sparked it back at me. Yeah.
I'm up for it. I'm totally
clap
game.
back, spark back. But what do we make of it? What do we make of it,
Suze?
Well, whether you are planning a wedding, hosting a conference, running a meeting, planning an offsite, a retreat, creating an immersive theater event or a gallery show or a book launch party, you might want to give it some deeper thought and not just rely on those old templates. Put it through the lens of Priya Parker's work. Laura, as I just mentioned, I want to look at the courses that we lead through the lens of this work, how we bring people on board, how we bond them, how we moderate discussions, how we conclude it.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
I'm game. I'm up for it.
It is sparks aplenty. I am so sparked by this book. As I said 10 times, I cannot recommend it highly enough. And I am so excited to continue to incorporate it into our creativity and our work. It is stunning. Thank you, Celia Knubelger, for that spark.
Thank you, Celia.
Thank you, Priya Parker, for your work.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you, Susan, for sparking us with it.
Thank you, Laura, for being sparked.
Oh my God. It's gratitude all around. It's so much gratitude. Wow, Suze, good spark. Really good.
Good sparks, plural. I can't wait to share your spark with Nathan. I want to see how he scores.
Oh, I want to know. Please let me know how he scores. I want to know.
I will. But in the meantime, I think that's it. This episode of The Spark File was made on Muncie, Lenape, and Seminole land. And as always, we hope this put another bunch of sparks in your file. Hey, listen, if there's a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you've taken a spark and fanned it into a creative flame and you'd like to share that, email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com or submit it through our website, thesparkfile.com. Also, if you have pictures of hummingbirds on your hummingbird feeder, we'd like those too.
And also, if you take the tests on whether you're a highly sensitive person or an empath, we want to know about
We'd
that
like that too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and we will take your feedback. You know that.
Also,
PPPPPS, you know the price of admission. First, you got to share a creative risk that you have taken recently.
You can follow us on social media at The Spark File. And if you have a chance, be sure to subscribe, rate, and 5-star review this podcast. Apparently, it really helps other listeners find us, especially subscribing. Also, if you like this podcast, we hope you'll share it with people that you love. And if you didn't like it, go start your own podcast, you creative little devil.
If something tickles your fancy and gets your creative juices flowing, we are writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
You know, you got to take it
and make it. Bye, nerds.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the chief creative officer and chief marketing officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.